Welcome back to another episode of the Lofty Lenders Homebuyer Education, where we explore tips, tricks, and stories that can help you plan for your next home purchase. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a move-up buyer, an investor, or just looking to learn, we hope you gain a little bit of knowledge today. Today, we are talking about something that honestly doesn't get and discussed enough in real estate and lending right now. How AI and social media education may actually be making the home buying process harder for many buyers. That's right, you heard me say harder, Charlie.
It we have too much information, and sometimes that's an overload. I totally agree.
Everyone thinks they need to, have the perfect house, have the perfect home inspection report, have a perfect interest rate, a perfect market condition. Like everything just has to be perfect in order for me to buy because that's what ChatGPT said, Charlie.
No, I think we're gonna have some really good insight on exactly pay attention to the data as we go through this, but you gotta have somebody who can help you do what's right for you. I mean, you and I are very similar. I think the answers we would get on AI would be very similar, but on personal preference and how we do things, it could be a very different answer on exactly what makes us feel accomplished and feel comfortable with a budget. AI doesn't have feelings. Oh my God. Kyle, are we talking about feelings?
I don't know about that. I'm not really into feelings, Charlie. Let's not talk about feelings. But buyers are watching endless TikToks, myself included, YouTube videos, AI generated articles, Reddit threads, Facebook groups, just hopping on to ChatGPT and asking questions. And one thing that when ChatGPT first came out and all these other large language models came out, one of the things that most people said was, you can't trust these things. They are going to make mistakes and they are going to have some misinformation out there. Just the other day, I talked to a customer and she told me, well, if I call the creditor, they have to let me settle for deletion. And I'm like, well, settle for deletion is better than, just paying it off, but they don't technically have to do that unless you follow the process. And the process, if it works in your favor, but it's not guaranteed to work in your favor. AI just took a few of the things that are right and stuck them together and said, this process flow will work if you do it this way. It's like,
Yeah.
no, not really.
Well, I just had somebody this morning on a call and they didn't want to even talk about PMI because AI said it'd be $300 to $400 a month. I did the quick calc. It's going to be about 70. That's I would not want PMI at $300 or $400 a month either, but totally wrong scenario. I almost asked what she searched, but I'm like, no, we won't get into that.
Well, and oftentimes I feel like AI gives very generalized information. It seems like it's really pointed to you, but if you step back and take a look at it, it's probably more general and not really specific to you. It's kind of like when you go in for, I don't really believe in the tarot card readings, right? But it's kind of like you go into that and they're like, oh, you're going to have something big happen to you. Well, crap, that could be anything. I could stub my toe and lose my toe. I don't know. Like, sure.
Well, and what's big? I mean, both get a scratch ticket. I win $5. I think that's big. You might need $20 or $1,000 to call it big. The descriptive words on the answers you're getting, I like the tarot card example because it's a great one. It's very generic leading. It may or may not even be close when you actually dive into it.
And the other reason I was thinking about putting this episode together today was because I've noticed a lot of people have had these home inspections that have come back with some things that are necessary to fix up and repair. And, we kind of changed in the market as far as we've talked about this a couple weeks ago, but it's really become more of a buyer's market. And buyers are asking for these things to be repaired, replaced, fixed, etc. But at the same time, the AI piece of it is saying, well, they're never going to fix that. Or, you're going to find a home that's going to not have that issue. So you should go find something else instead. It's kind of like buying a used car. I mean, we kind of forget about this, but you buy a used car, it looks pretty nice, but then you get into it and you realize, well, there's a scratch there, there's a dent there. Is it perfect? No. You buy a used house, somebody's already lived in it. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not, but it should check off three or four of your major boxes.
Yep.
It has that car has wheels. That car can drive me from my house to my work or me to my kids' soccer practice or whatever. That car can solve some of my issues, but is that car Is it the color I wanted? Probably not. I don't even know what color. I kind of like the neon green, but they don't make a lot of those.
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, when we look at it, I'd never buy new cars. Like, I just don't want to pay the sticker price. So if you want to build your own house, maybe you could get perfect. That's still doubtful. I mean, you're building your house. Is it perfect? No. You
True.
only want to spend so much. And so, like you said, if the car isn't the right color, maybe it's front wheel drive versus all wheel drive, it's still good. And where are you buying within budget? Because you could always get the car that has everything you want, but then do you want to afford it? And no, we need to stick within budget. Just have fair expectations. And that way you do get to make it your own. I mean, we bought the kids' cars and they were filthy. The kids didn't even want to get in them and drive them. Like, well, I mean, it is your first car. But we spent the time, a little bit of money, and had, shampoo done. They were like spick and span. Awesome. Totally different. Now the kids were thrilled. I'm like, okay, well, less price, spent $300 on materials. Now the car is better than we bought it. And so it checked more boxes. Still not four-wheel drive, but they'll have to deal with it.
Well, and I think about this too a little bit. Sticking with this car example, you've got the Carfax, right? It's got this 100-point report about about the car you're buying and everything that's gone on with it and stuff. We also then have essentially your home inspection. It's a very similar report to the Carfax report. Well, the home inspection report is now being uploaded, I think, into GPT, and people are questioning, all these different things going on with it. I've seen so many home inspections that are 25 pages long, and they've got little things here and there. And people have bought houses, people have lived in those houses, people have sold those houses many years later. That all happened based on a 25-page inspection report that they had before. They weren't sticking it into an AI and saying, "Hey, analyze this for me and tell me what's really wrong." I mean, you know, it's a what might be wrong or really bad in the Midwest might not be as big of a deal on the coast as well. And so if it's just
Yeah.
generalized information saying you don't have, your homeowner's insurance policy doesn't have earthquake coverage, you're not going to have many earthquakes in Iowa. I think you're okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good example too with the location, the vicinity to what's important to your area. We do get tornadoes. We've had people move into Iowa and like, there's no basement. What am I gonna do? And it's like, we just sat in the porch in the last tornado. Sirens are going off. Now, granted, we did go downstairs for about 20
Actually,
minutes. But I mean, my mother-in-law has a slab and they put, a safe room in the garage. There's so many things you can compensate and not have to worry about. Um, but again, you just can't throw that into a system that takes information from everywhere. I mean, you and I had to talk about, okay, it's Zillow. Everybody loves Zillow, and I can't stand Zillow. It's a great access point for data, but there's too much. And you don't know what's true, you don't know what's not true. So too much data is just problematic if you don't know how to go through it.
yeah, I recently was working with a buyer. She had found a home that she loved. It was in the right neighborhood. It was sending her kids to the right school. House was solid overall, and she got her home inspection back, and it wasn't anything big. Couple items that were about $200 a piece, and they were nothing major. But she started going through all this stuff on TikTok and putting questions into AI, and now it suddenly became this much bigger issue. And suddenly she backed out saying, there's no way that I'm ever going to raise my kids in a house that's got all these issues. It's like, those were minor. And so I feel like we've lost out on people potentially getting their dream home because of, misinformation or too much information. That, like we said at the beginning, the consuming of too much information, not all of it's intended for you. And that's part of our jobs as loan officers, is to make sure that I give you what makes sense for your situation. I don't tell you about a VA loan if you're not a veteran. There's not really much reason to talk about it. But if we need to get into the nitty gritty of stuff and you find out all these things about a VA loan, now you're going to be construed or thinking maybe those things need to apply to you.
Right. Well, and perfection versus progress. I mean, when we're looking at a first house, a second house, a third house, rarely is it the end house. And even then, the end house is not their dream home. Typically, they're downsizing. So, getting something that's better than what you have. And I think we really need to look at What are you in now? Is your apartment got brand new carpet? Is it okay? What if you cleaned it? It'd be fine. So having that fair gauge of you don't live in a perfect scenario now. Highly unlikely you're going to get a perfect scenario, but how do you make that next step so you're getting closer to what you want to be? And that way you do make the progress because most people are going to have two, three, four houses throughout their time. Some people a lot more, but you're making those steps little by little. And I think some of the most gratifying items are when you do get to do your own project, make that house your own, and you have that pride of ownership, not just that you live there, but you did make it your own. You painted that room. I just put sod in the last few days, which is painful. But it was just so personally gratifying that I didn't have to pay somebody to do it. I got to do it, and I got to have my kids help. And now we get to enjoy a backyard that we created.
Well, thinking about current events and how this really ties into that, with all these AI generated articles out there, and even me, I'm guilty of using AI to help me with preparing clips and things like that. Um, some of these titles are more clickbait than they are reality. And so you'll get titles like "Never buy a house with this problem" or "The housing crash is coming" or "Why you should wait to buy." Like just different things that seem to kind of scare us. And we oftentimes get upset with the news because they're always putting out their fear, and they want you to click on this, read this, open it up, etc. But in reality, when you're looking at buying a house, you shouldn't think about "never buy a house with this problem" or, "the housing crash is coming." Like, focus on your finances, your goals, your timeline, your local market. Like, what's important to you and how can we move forward? Because again, thinking about what's going on over the Middle East right now and knowing that there's war and who knows, maybe it's going to end, maybe it's going to continue. Nobody really knows what's going on yet. As of the time this gets released, who knows? Maybe it'll be over. Who knows anymore? But at the same time, that is slowing people down from buying a house right now because they're worried about what's going on overseas instead of thinking about how does that impact me directly and can I move forward and buy a house? I mean, there's a lot of people that are sitting on the fence waiting for this whole thing to sort out. Maybe it's the perfect time to hop in and buy right now.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going to be moving a large area, it's not a perfect time to buy the house. But if you know you like the area you're in, and if you ever got a new job, it's going to be in the same commutable distance. Really, no one should be waiting to buy a house unless you have a big unknown that says, you know what, I might not even be in that area. And that's fair. But otherwise, you're fixing in your expenses. You start to gain that appreciation and you just make that first jump. The first one's always the hardest because you don't have equity. Your rent is going to the landlord. You're not accumulating anything other than you're paying for a space to live, which is fine. But as soon as you can get out of that, you've got a lot of perks. It's just hard to see them sometimes, and you think you got to have it all done. You don't.
Well, I also think about like so many kids want to have their first home be just like their parents' home and have all the amenities and have all the things and yeah, that's really not reality. And this first time homebuyer loan or program or whatever you want to talk about really should be your first home, and that is not necessarily your permanent home. So expectations are also important as well.
Yeah. Well, and another easy one, like we've been doing the auto, is refrigerators. Kyle, what was your first refrigerator? I had a dorm fridge. It
Yeah.
it fit everything for college, and then I got my first place. I had one of the smaller ones, freezer on top, white. It still had the fruit drawer, the veggie drawer, and shelves, and I could fit all my beverages, all my food, and I had my free. It was fine. It wasn't pretty. It was just white. And we just got a new one because heaven forbid they last longer than 5 years. The amount you can get, I mean, you're getting touch screens, you're spending $5,000 to $10,000 on a fridge. You don't need to. The cheap fridge is $800. If you can afford more, great. If you don't want to afford more, I'm pretty sure they all cool the same way, as long as they're running. So again, if you want to buy a used one, careful. Everything we have has so many levels of basic gets by, and you start to add those amenities on. I remember when I got my first car with electric windows, otherwise you had to crank. That
Wow,
was
you're old.
shut up, Kyle.
Hey, Charlie, is your refrigerator running? Because you better go catch it. Oh, wait.
The one downstairs might not be.
Well, three actionable takeaways today. Stop treating social media like it's personalized advice. Just remember that it's education, but it's just noise. Talk to an experienced professional, us, your own loan officer, somebody else, doesn't matter, but just talk to somebody and make sure you're getting the right information. Two, focus on major problems versus normal home ownership. If it's a structural foundation issue, maybe a big deal. If it's the refrigerator is old and it's white, probably not that big of a deal. We can probably get a different one. And three, avoid analysis paralysis. At some point, buyers have to make decisions based on facts, not fears. And that's really true with all the click me, buy me, and the fear mongering and all that stuff out there right now. So, Charlie, anything else on this before we duck out today?
Focus on the exciting pieces. We do want you budgeting and confident there, but if you focus on the little stuff, it's just like in life. It's just going to bog you down. You're not going to get where you want to go. So focus on the good stuff. There's a lot of it there, and we will help you with that.
Well, I think today's biggest takeaway is simple. AI can be an incredible tool, but it shouldn't really make the decisions for you. It's not very commonsensical. It is not very professional at times, and it's not usually realistic for you as well. So, um, we hope you enjoyed the conversation today and found it valuable. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms and subscribe to the podcast for more exciting episodes. And remember, stay curious. We'll see you next week on The Wealthy Lender.